Welcome to the Just As I Am podcast. As always, I'm your host, Nicole Wilson, and today we are fixing to get a little bit deeper than usual. I have some questions before we begin. Do you ever have feelings of nervousness, irritability, or being on edge? What about feelings of panic or sensing impending danger or doom? What about increased heart rate? Hyperventilation, sweating or shaking, even feelings of weakness or exhaustion? Do you ever have difficulty concentrating or sleeping? Maybe even gastrointestinal disturbances? These are all signs of anxiety. So, as you've gathered by the intro, this is going to be a little bit off kilter from usual. For the past 6 episodes on the podcast, I have been going over Bible stories with you. Well, today we're going to discuss a different topic, which is a topic I am very familiar with. And when I was younger, I didn't really talk about it a lot. Mainly because I feel like it's gotten worse for me as I've gotten older. But today we're going to be talking about anxiety and depression. 2 things I wish nobody had, but sadly that's not the case. According to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, the ADAA, these are the most common signs and symptoms of anxiety. Anxiety disorders are real and serious medical conditions, just as real and as serious as physical disorders such as heart disease or diabetes. Anxiety disorders are the most common and pervasive mental disorders in the United States. An estimated 264 million people worldwide have an anxiety disorder. So by now, you're probably wondering, out of all the topics that I could have chosen from, why did I choose this one? So I want to take a minute to explain why I chose this one. Did you know women are nearly twice as likely as men to be diagnosed with an anxiety disorder in their lifetime? In the past year or so, prevalence of any anxiety disorder was higher for females at 23.4% than for males at 14.3%. The term anxiety disorder refers to specific psychiatric disorders that involve extreme fear or worry. These include generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD, panic disorder and panic attacks, agoraphobia, social anxiety disorder, selective mutism, separation anxiety, and some other specific phobias. So, from the time that a girl reaches puberty until about the age of 50, she is twice as likely to have an anxiety disorder as a man. Aren't they lucky ducks? Anxiety disorders also occur earlier in women than men. You know, jealousy is not a beautiful attire to wear, but in certain circumstances, here we are. Women are also more likely to have multiple psychiatric disorders during their lifetime than men. The most common to co-occur with anxiety is, I'll give you a second to put in your guess, depression. Differences in the brain chemistry may account for at least part of these differences. The brain system involved in the fight or flight response is activated more readily in women and stays activated longer than men, partially as a result of the action of estrogen and progesterone. Depression in the United States affects over 18 million adults. Just to give you an idea, that is 1 in 10 adults in any given year. It is the leading cause of disability for ages 15 to 44. It is the primary reason why someone dies of suicide about every 12 minutes. And this totals up to over 41,000 people a year. In comparison, homicide claims less than 16,000 lives each year, according to the CDC statistics in 2013. This is a super important topic to me. And at times we could recite verses such as Philippians 4:6, which tells us don't worry about anything, but in everything through prayer and petition with thanksgiving present your requests to God. Or we could say Psalm 34:17, the righteous cry out and the Lord hears and rescues them from all of their troubles. Maybe even Psalm 55:22, cast your burden on the Lord and he will sustain you. He will never allow the righteous to be shaken. And perhaps last but not least, Matthew 11:28, come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. We can tell people these, we can look them up, we can recite them all day long, 24/7 to them. But I am going to try and do one better than that. And I want to tell you a story. Did you know that even Jesus himself was deeply anguished over what lay before him? He knew what was to come. He knew that God had called him to a journey of great suffering. He knew what must happen in order for us to live truly freely. Truly freely? To be truly free. This perfect man who never did any wrong, our Savior and Lord, was willing to pay the price on our behalf, but it was not an easy road. Once we, do some digging in our Bible and we do some research, Isaiah 53:3 tells us that Isaiah prophesied that Christ would be a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. You don't typically think of Jesus as someone who lived that way, who ever had, that kind of emotion, that kind of feeling. But, we can be assured that in whatever we face, Jesus understands our weakness and suffering, our greatest times of temptation and despair, because he too traveled that road, yet without sin. In the garden, through the night, Jesus prayed all alone, calling out to his Father, asking for another way. In Mark 14:34-36, we read, and he said to him, my soul is deeply grieved to the point of death. Remain here and keep watch. And he went a little beyond them and fell to the ground and began to pray that if it were possible, the hour might pass him by. And as he was saying, Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Remove this cup from me, yet not what I will, but what you will. Doesn't this give you a little bit of comfort? That even the people who seem to have it all together, that everything seems to go right for them, and they still have emotions and worries like we do. All of us did survive 2020, and 2020 was honestly pretty fine for me. Yeah, I like to describe myself as an introvert who likes to get out, but I like to get out when everybody else has gone in. Does that make sense? So being locked up for a few months was not exactly my cup of tea, but I didn't hate it. The first few months of 2020 were pretty fine for me. I survived it just like everybody else. Well, that's here. But the end of the year was not so good for me. It started just, I don't want to say escalating, but just I don't know how to describe it. It just got worse and worse more towards the end of the year for me. And my anxiety became so bad that at one point I did not want to be left alone at any given point. I just did not. I was always around somebody. I didn't want to take showers because I would be alone. I didn't want to go to bed because I would be alone. I just didn't want to be by myself. And you can ask my mom about it because it's kind of embarrassing being the age that I am, but I still live at home, and I would make my mom go to bed with me every night. Thank goodness for big girl beds. I had so much trouble sleeping that I would get her to sleep with me in my bed, and I would often cry myself to sleep, praying so hard for God to do something about it, to take it away. And eventually I started talking to my doctor because my mother made me. Thanks, Mom. And I started taking medicine for my anxiety and other things. And I can honestly say that my dose has been upped a few times since then, but at times I still can have strong anxiety, but it's so much betterly managed than what it used to be. And it sounds crazy, but it works. And I just want to tell you that just because people always have a smile on their face does not mean that they are okay. I can definitely tell you that most of the time if I have a smile on my face, it's because I'm uncomfortable. It's because I don't know what to do in the situation. It's because, there's so much stuff behind the scenes about anxiety. People who don't have it, like someone like me, will look at our worries and, shake them off. You'll speak your worries and then they'll act like you're crazy or that you're just panicking for no reason. And that's not the truth. That's not how we see it. So when we verbalize that to you and someone dusts us off, like, what we're saying or what we're panicking, what we're freaking out about doesn't matter, that really makes an impact. And that's why a lot of people don't tell you what is going on, how they feel. So I want you to be kind and have patience with people. I want you to, even if you don't have the same fears or feelings or whatever about something and somebody brings theirs to you, at least pretend to be concerned, or just don't tell them quit worrying about it, because that's not how this works. And just remember to be kind and have patience. And you know what? One of my opinions is there are so many specific reasons, but I believe that women suffer from this more because women are mean. Everybody's mean, but women to women are mean. There are times and certain types of people that just can't accept people for who they are, and they have so much judgment. They just have to judge and be harsh towards them. Women can get along, and then there's ones who just can't, which I can get along with anybody no matter whether I like you or not. That's just me as a person, I guess. But I want you to be a difference out there, and I want you to go show God's light and love to all others, no matter if they're like you or not. And if you feel that you are someone who gets attacked for being different, I want you to continue to be who you are, because that is exactly who God made you to be. And being the age that I am, it's been years, but I finally have decided to just quit being or trying to be somebody else, because one, it takes so much time and effort to be somebody else. It's so much easier to be yourself. And you should not be like anybody else, because you were made to be different, and God knew who you were before you even were in your mother's womb. You were beautifully and wonderfully made, and you always will be. And I want to go ahead and leave you with this. If you are out there, I want to remind you that you are never alone. There is always someone who is willing to listen to you and to care for you and give you the support you need. The national hotline for Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is, if you dial 988. And if you are in the state of Tennessee like I am, you can call 855-CRISIS-1. That is 855-274-7471. Or you can text TN to 741741. I hope that this gives you some peace or comfort or strength. And I hope if you need help that you will reach out and get it, because the last thing that anyone wants is for you to leave us. So I am so thankful for you. Thank you for coming back again this week and listening. And I'm praying for you always. And I will catch y'all on the next episode.